I'm sure you've seen this cover recently. This book has been kind of unavoidable this year. From talk shows to podcasts, I feel as though I couldn't escape this book. So I picked it up and read it from back to front. And well, it is good, really good, but the author does get a few things wrong. There are a few key misunderstandings and misrepresentation of data that I strongly disagree against. Some of the author's opinions, in my opinion, are just wrong. I read Ultra Processed People, so you don't have to. And here's what it got right and what it got terribly wrong. The premise. The main points of Ultra Processed People is defining what ultra processed food is, finding what it does to us, and then ultimately what we can do about it. Now, the definition that the author uses here is a really interesting one, and I actually like it very much. So his definition of ultra processed food actually also spills over into his opinion on the company that makes it. So for example, if I am eating Pringles, the people who've made the Pringles don't actually have any intention of me being healthy. They have made that product with no desire for me to actually receive any sort of nutrition. Instead, they've made it just for profit. So food companies that make things just for profit makes their food ultra processed food in the eyes of this author, as well as adding other things, ultimately increasing profit for that company. In addition to this, he also mentions advertisements and different ways of marketing a product, also meaning that product is ultra processed food. For example, Cocoa Pops, which has a big fun image of a monkey that would entice lots of kids to buy that cereal, even though it's just sugary crap that really isn't good for them at all, and offers very, very low amounts of nutritional value. There's one quote that I thought was really powerful, and I want you to hold on to this as the video goes on. Most UPF is not food. It's an industrially produced edible substance. When the company is not interested in your own health, your health will take a backseat to the company's profits. That means adding lower quality ingredients. That means adding additives. That means adding preservatives and emulsifiers. Mass industrial farming for the meat in whatever product that is. Deforestation. Stuff like palm oil and stuff like that. And then getting all of those things and then repackaging it as the healthier option. One very sly way of them doing this is, for example, going back to Cocoa Pops, they can say, oh, but in 30 grams you only get this much salt or this much sugar. Whereas 30 grams is like not even half of what people usually have. I had a mate who would just put it was almost like a 200 gram bowl of Cocoa Pops and then would pour milk on it. 30 grams isn't the truth. If they did it off how much people were actually using, then that count would be very different. The author does briefly talk about the kind of ingredients that we can find in these ultra-processed foods that are not beneficial for our health. He talks about the kind of gums, xanthan gum, which is actually kind of bacteria excrement, so it's not very nice to think about at the very least. We have these things that cause deforestation, like palm oil. We also have, again, palm oil, going back to that actually develops trans fats, which are really bad for us. And it's actually something that is banned, not only in the EU, but I believe also at least limited in the US. And you know, if something's banned in the US, then it's got to be really bad because they don't care at all. But to be fair, this is also one of my criticisms with the book, is it doesn't go into the ingredients as much as I would have liked it to do. Like, for example, it does talk about soy, lecithins and whatever, and how emulsifiers affect our health. That I'm not going to go into fully in this video because it is a part of the book and I would just be reading out the chapter to you. But it doesn't go as far in as I would have liked. But moving on from this, it does talk about something that I thought was really, really interesting, which is the amount of funding that businesses put towards people who do these studies in order to get a favourable outcome. Now, companies can't actually give money and then say, hey, give us a favourable outcome. They can't really do that. So what they do instead is they give the money to the scientists that do this, and instead maybe they design the study in a way that they will have some really great outcomes for them. Like, for example, what about we did a study where I drank Coke every single day, and I had someone else who also drank Coke, but we didn't put in the study that I was exercising every single day and I was also eating a lot less food than the other person, and then lo and behold, I end up losing weight and the other guy ends up putting on weight because I'm in a caloric deficit. And then Coke can just say, oh yes, it's fine to drink 10 Cokes a day because actually we did a study and the other guy who didn't drink Coke actually put on more weight. So they can just add these variables and remove these variables however they please. And we're actually starting to see these people who are funded by these big corporations that, again, I must reiterate, are not for you and for me. They are only serving themselves and their own profit. We're starting to see these people in health bodies, and we're starting to see these people in cohorts of people who are supposed to be serving us, these people who are supposed to be letting the government know what is good and what is bad, with these people who are supposed to be influencing the government and the overall society, at least of this country, through popular studies and through interjections in newspapers and in magazines and such. This is another evil that the author points out in this book, that these companies have now gotten so big that they're starting to twist the science however they want to twist it. And they're actually starting to influence policy, government, and how we run not only this country, but every country around the world. The author actually also touches on someone called Jamie Oliver. Now, if you're in the UK, then you know exactly who this is. But if you're from elsewhere, basically, he's like a kind of, not an influencer chef, but like a TV chef. He is apparently a very good chef as well. But he took a lot of his public standpoints against ultra-processed foods, especially in schools. And he's got his own panel where he discusses how he can make a difference and how he can change policies in order to get kids healthier. And he's got this panel of experts, but on the panel of experts are people that are from Coca-Cola, are people who are from Kellogg's. These are people who do not actually want Jamie Oliver to succeed. But why has he allowed them in the room? Well, the author doesn't really go into it too much, but I reckon it's because of money. I think a lot of these companies know exactly what they're doing. I think they know that in order to have a good public standpoint, where the public actually want to invest in your company in terms of having your product, they also need to appear as though they're helping the customer in an actual meaningful way, even though they're not. It's all optics. But this takes me into my main criticism with the book. So you see, it has all of this information on the lists of bad ingredients that it doesn't go into as much as I would like. And it has all of this information about the people who are on the boards who are actually funded by Coca-Cola, and how Coca-Cola made all these studies that discounted the bad effects of sugar, and all these places that actually are doing deforestation and all this stuff and all this crap stuff. But he doesn't really go into what we can do as much as I would like him to do. When I read a book on a problem, when I watch a video on a problem, I want to know the solution in that video or in that book. In this book, we don't really get that. What we get is him presenting the problem, which is good, don't get me wrong. It is good that people now know that it's a problem, but he doesn't present any meaningful answers. He does present a few things. He does present that you should eat ultra-processed foods while you're reading the book. This is a way that's similar to the book How to Stop Smoking, which tells you all of the facts about smoking and how bad it is, but yet encourages you to smoke doing it to make you kind of put down the cigarette yourself, instead of just feeling like you've been told to do so and then picking it up later on instead. Now, this can work with some people. And there's other stuff in the book that is similar to this as well, where I personally just don't connect to it, because I feel as though I am kind of healthy already, and I already know that ultra-processed foods are bad. But I wanted to know more about that, and I want to know more about how I could allow myself to have even less ultra-processed foods than I already do. And the book doesn't really present those answers. The book also presents other facts that I just disagree with. And I hope some people who have read the book can come onto this video and have a second opinion on some of the things that he says. The author actually puts forward an idea that the human body can self-regulate the amount of calories that it uses. He cites a study that was basically a group of people who were doing strenuous exercise for long periods of time for 3 months, and they had the same amount of calories. And then they took this and they restricted the amount of calories that they could have, obviously, and they kept running, and then they realized that the amount of calories that they were burning instead was burning into their vital functions, such as the immune system and sexual health and stuff like that. So he takes somehow from this study that the body can actually regulate how much calories that it uses. I suppose he's correct from a very short-sighted point of view, but the whole point of this study, for me, is actually proving to us that we need to eat more calories if we're doing more exercise. Those people who were continuously doing exercise were starving themselves at the end of that study. They were starving themselves. They had nothing left in their fat stores to the point where they had to go into their immune system. If they continuously ate 1,000 more calories, then they would actually have more energy to burn off. And this is something that he continues on in the book. He says, no, it's not exercise because of this reason. And he says, no, it's not willpower. Well, there's fast food everywhere and it's almost unavoidable, and it is hard to get groceries, and I do agree with that. But to say it's not willpower takes the power away from the person who's reading the book to actually make a change in their lives that they can actually see happen tomorrow. Instead, to me, he insinuates that we have no power, that all the companies have the power. And I can see where he's coming from here, 100%. But there is things that me and you can do for our bodies immediately that include willpower that can help us be healthier. I was going to mention at the end of this video that he also says something about testosterone, which is that he mentioned that apparently if you have a more sedentary lifestyle, which is where you sit down mostly inside, you actually get higher counts of testosterone. This is not true. I don't know how he's reached this conclusion. It's completely not true. If you actually want fat loss, and a really good way of doing that is to increase your testosterone, because with your calories that come in, testosterone basically tells your body, hey, we should make muscle in this instead of fat. It's actually estrogen that indicates to your body to create fat. So having high testosterone isn't actually going to be that bad in terms of obesity and having overweight symptoms and stuff like that. So that's the end of my review of this book. What did you think? Have you read it? I basically thought, well, I liked the information that he gave us, but he didn't give us as much of a blueprint in order to really put our lives into a better place without government intervention. Because even the author kind of alludes towards the fact that it is going to be really, really difficult for these companies to be purged out of the government, and even then, there's nothing telling us that the government even wants that to happen. So listen, if you want to know more about bad shit in your environment, watch this video.